When it comes to buying and selling livestock, trust is everything. At Hired Hand Live, we have a platform that breeders and buyers rely on, whether participating in a live auction, an internet-only event, or hosting their own online auction. Our secure, user-friendly system ensures that your bid counts, and every transaction is backed by our commitment to integrity.
Whether you're a part of a consignment sale or planning your own internet auction, Hired Hand Live connects breeders and buyers live and online. Discover why breeders trust us with their livestock auctions. Visit hiredhandlive.com today. Hi there, I'm Molly.
And I'm Jamie, and this is our From the Pasture with Hired Hand podcast.
For 15 years now, we've been proudly helping breeders promote hundreds of thousands of pedigree livestock with our easy-to-use animal management-driven website software.
And let's not forget about Hired Hand Live, where over $1 million worth of livestock is sold online each year.
We're excited to bring you market trends, sales data, advice from your fellow breeders, and stories from the ranch.
Our software makes managing your website and your animals a breeze, so you can focus on what you love.
So let us handle your digital chores while you tune in to another episode of From the Pasture with Hired Hand. Today I'm joined with Mark Gilliland of Gilliland Longhorns in Weatherford, Texas. And the tagline on your homepage, Mark, is adding science to the art of Longhorn breeding. And so today I feel like we're going to talk quite a bit about the science behind your breeding philosophy, but then we're also going to touch on a few other topics as well. So thank you so much for joining me.
Well, thank you. I'm enjoying the opportunity to speak to you.
Well, let's just start a little bit for maybe those listeners who haven't met you or heard of you. Just tell me a little bit about yourself, and then we can talk about how you got started in Longhorns.
Okay. Charlene and I live in Weatherford. I have a ranch at the Kansas-Oklahoma border that's been in the family for over 100 years, and I'm the fourth generation of ranching, I guess, if you will. I worked on a tractor, a horse, or fed cattle until I was 18 years old, and I thought I would be a rancher. But when it came time to, I talked to my high school counselor, and he said, maybe you should try something different from ranching and maybe be a doctor or a lawyer or an engineer. And I said, well, I don't care much for lawyers or engineers, so I guess maybe I'll try to be a surgeon. We had a lot of veterinary surgery out on the ranch with C-sections and things like that, so I enjoyed that a lot. So I got a genetics degree at the University of Kansas and went to medical school at the University of Kansas, got an MD degree, and then went to the University of Texas at Houston and took 5 years of general surgery at the Texas Medical Center. Enjoyed that, and then went to UCLA in California and became a plastic surgeon. So I really got addicted to surgery during that time. I was 32 years old, and I decided it was time for an adventure. So I got on an airplane and I flew to Southern Africa, and I did a Doctors Without Borders thing and operated on the Basotho tribe in Southern Africa for 6 months. After that, I went back to Houston, became a professor at Baylor College of Medicine, and practiced plastic surgery there for 25 years, and then retired in 2013 and moved back to the ranch in 2014. So I've gone full circle. Now I'm back to ranching. So it's been quite a journey.
It sounds like it. It sounds like maybe your guidance counselor knew a little bit what he was talking about too.
Maybe it turned out pretty well in retrospect. So I was happy with that decision, but I'm happy with what I'm doing now. So it all worked out fine.
So you mentioned 2013, 2014. At any point before that, had you thought about getting back into ranching, or how did you, talk to me about how you made that decision and how it ultimately led you back to Longhorns?
Well, I always enjoyed ranching, but it was very hard work. It's a 7-day-a-week job, and sometimes we made money, sometimes we didn't. And so I didn't mind working 7 days a week, but I could make more money doing plastic surgery than I could ranching. But as I got older, I missed my agricultural background, and so. And then having gone to the University of Texas for 5 years, my daughter went to the University of Texas for 4 years. I kind of got ingrained with Longhorns. And when it went back to the ranch, quite honestly, working with Herefords and Angus was boring. And so I ended up leasing out 90% of the ranch to a family to raise commercial cattle, and I kept 10% of it for my Longhorns, and that's how I got started. I actually went to the Eddie Wood sale in 2014, and I met someone there called Justin the Longhorn Man. And we all know that turned out to be Justin Rombeck. And we sat down for a couple of hours. He talked about Longhorns and introduced me to a few people. And I thought, when you retire, you need a project. And I thought this would be a good project with my genetics background and agricultural background. I thought this might be fun to do. So that's how I got into it.
So did you purchase any at that sale then, or were you just kind of
No.
there to do your research?
I was there learning, quite honestly. Justin introduced me to a couple more of his clients, Todd McKnight, Richard Phillip, and Cowboy Casanova was very hot at the time. He'd won the Millennium Futurity, won some measuring contests. Todd and Richard were part owners, so I decided to join them. So I became a 1/3 owner of Cowboy Casanova. I bought some Cowboy Casanova daughters, and I was off and running. And we sort of had a business plan where Justin was teaching me about the genetics and how to stack pedigrees. So we would go to a sale. I'd pick out a few. Justin would critique it. We'd kind of set a budget, and we went to the Legacy sale, the Hudson Valentine sale, the Midwest sale, the Horn Showcase, and so I tried to hit every sale and buy one or two cows at each sale, based on our discussions, and that's how I got started.
So how many head did you have by the time of the end of that first year on all those sales?
Probably 25 or so. And at that point, that's when I decided that I needed a website. And I was, of course, I shopped around, but I had to have a hired hand website because I liked the way that you connected with the rest of the industry. And I love the way that it was laid out, the measurements, the progeny, and the research that I wanted to do was available on those websites. And it was easy to interconnect with other websites. And then I got connected to Craig Perez's Arrowhead website, which is affiliated with you guys, and it was really one of my favorite parts of the industry is going through the websites, seeing what other people were doing, comparing my program to them, and growing from that point. So hired hand websites had really a lot to do with my growth in the Longhorn industry.
Well, I think there's a lot of people in that same boat that, rely on Craig's site pretty heavily to educate themselves or to, do the research on the bloodlines they're thinking to breed. So,
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah. It was a big help. And it was a lot of fun too. So I enjoy that a lot. So I still do it today.
That's good. That's good. Now that you have quite a bit larger herd than what you started with, based off just even the animals on your website, what's your favorite part? What are you enjoying about this project in retirement?
Well, I'm kind of a computer cowboy at this point. I go to the computer, I go to Facebook, I see what people are doing, I go to their websites, I see what combinations they're trying, what's working, and then I develop my own genetic plan and I put the combinations together. And then I really enjoy calving season. I like to see the correctness of the cattle that I've bred, and enjoy the watching the calves grow, the heifers produce, their horn direction. That's what I enjoy the most, is doing the research and seeing the results of the research.
And how many head do you have today?
I've got over 100 females today, and my program is such that I typically do the ovum pickup and the IVF on my top 5 cows, and then I'll artificially inseminate with heifer sex semen on about 30. And then I'll pregnancy test them at 45 days. And then the open ones, I'll pasture breed with different bulls that I've selected. And we can put, we have a large place, but I like to have no more than 3 bulls on the place at one time, 3 mature bulls, because I don't want them to interact, fight, tear down fences, things like that. So I'll typically divide the herd up into thirds, all the open ones, and then we'll pasture breed them, and then we'll see what we have next season.
Well, for the listeners who haven't been to your website at all or recently, I really want to encourage them to go. What you and I are going to do if you're up for it is I feel like there's so much information on your website that we could probably spend hours picking your brain and sharing it, but we're going to try to break it up into a few different sections here, if you're okay with that.
Yeah, sure.
So I'm gonna read a few of the sections from your website, and then we'll go over some questions about them. So this first section I'm going to read over, I believe, relates to the goals of your breeding program. So it reads, our goal is the complete package, prioritizing a low twisty horn set with great tip-to-tip measurements, along with correct conformation, color, and disposition. That said, the most important trait is the ability to reproduce those traits in progeny. We have gone through each animal in our herd several generations back to document the number of 80, 90, 100-inch tip-to-tip ancestors in each pedigree, and see if one ancestor transmits a dominant horn set. And then it goes on to speak to how you genetically can fix that twisty lateral horn in the bloodlines without compromising the total package, which I find fascinating and I'll be honest, completely above my head. So let's just kind of break that down a little bit. So for example, what do you mean by genetically fixing that low lateral horn or the tip-to-tip?
Well, it's an idealistic idea, obviously, and when you research it, you find it's very hard to do. Number one, if you look at pictures of longhorns from 50 years ago, they all had vertical horn sets, and that's because the vertical horns are defensive. It's easier to drive off a coyote or impale a mountain lion, if you will, if you have vertical horns. And of course, what we as Longhorn breeders are trying to do is create a low lateral horn set. So we're trying to offset that. The other thing is the tip to tip is it's a quantitative trait, and it's dependent on nutrition. The better the nutrition, the better the horn growth. And I would say that probably 90 to 95% of it is genetics, but 5 to 10% of it is nutrition. So the better the nutrition, the better the horn growth. The other thing is, I think it depends on environment. The colder environment, we all know that our horn growth slows down in the winter, and that's because the arteries that supply the horn, they vasoconstrict, they deliver fewer nutrients and oxygen to the keratin and the horn, and so it slows growth. And in fact, in some places, it creates a minor heart attack to the horn, and it kills the horn. And sometimes you see droopy horns or tips that fall off. So we're fighting that. The other thing we're doing in order to try to get horn direction, we have several parameters that we're working with. Number one, it's the shape of the skull. I like to see a little Vatican dome at the top so that it makes the horns grow down and out. If you see the V shape, that's what happens to the Watusis, and the horns go up. So I like a pole that is that has a slight dome shape to it. The other thing that controls lateral horn growth is the orientation of the frontal sinus. That's where the horn grows from. So that has to be oriented correctly. The base diameter determines horn length. The bigger the base, it seems like the more lateral horn you get, because the more keratin deposition you get, and there's no thinning or splintering of the horn. The arterial blood supply to the horn makes a big difference. How the animal processes protein makes a big difference. Keratin is the outer covering of the horn, but keratin is also what hair is made of, hooves are made of. So how the animal distributes the keratin makes a big difference. Also, the protein synthesis of the fetus. You're competing for the protein. The horn, the hair, the fetus. They all need that protein synthesis. Color is a factor. Black animals, the black horn grows slower than white horn. Oftentimes it catches up, but that slows it down. Twists. If you have twists in the horn, that slows down lateral extension. And disposition slows it down too. If you have an aggressive animal that's always rubbing its horns, that really decreases the tip to tip growth. And the other thing, sometimes the genes are directed so that some animals, they have very rapid early growth, others have later growth. Like, for example, cowboy tufjacks, his horns grow very quickly. Jamaichisms are more slower, more extended in duration, and so you have multiple genes. We're trying to get tip to tip, and we're trying to fix it. But the reality is, when you really study it, there's only about a 20% chance that you can fix a trait, and that's based on. There's a professor at the University of Texas by the name of David Hillis that's an evolutionary biologist, and he has his own herd, and he's really studied the DNA genome and has put a lot of this data together. So there's a lot of pieces that have to interact just exactly right to get good lateral horn extension. That's what we're all striving for.
So do you have an animal in your herd that folks could reference on your website where most of those or all of those pieces have come together and you've seen some success in honing in on that? Yes. and getting them to lay down?
I have some combinations that have really worked well. I have the She's a Whippoorwill line, and that I've combined that with Hubble's 20 gauge with artificial insemination, and I've gotten a great lateral horn extension. I have 20 Whippoorwill gal, that is 20 gauge times Casanova She's a Whip, and she'll be 100 inches next year at 6 inches, or at 6 years. The Hubble's 20 gauge also goes well with the Texana Van Horn line, and I've got a great heifer that's Monica's Roman gal that's going to be 80 inches at 3 years. I've also I've put cowboy tufjacks with Jamaichism, especially drag iron daughters. that combination has been extremely successful. I have a heifer called Cut and Drag that's double bred drag iron, double bred Cowboy Tough Checks, and she's going to be in her mid 80s at 3 years old. I've also had good luck, just double bred Cowboy Tough Checks over some Tom Smith widespread ranch breeding, WS Rising Star, WS Sunrise. And I've got a great heifer called Cuttin' Royal that should calve this in November, but she's going to be in her 80s at 3 years of age. So, yeah, some of it has come together. It's not but again, it's not like you put these combinations together and you have an 80% success rate. You put the combinations together and you get a 20% success rate. So most of the animals are average, some are below average, and some are superstars. And that's just the nature of the DNA genome and the randomness of how all the nucleotides and the genes fit together. It's I would like to say that you can scientifically fix it. The reality is you can scientifically fix about 20% of it. So that's about it.
That's got to be a little frustrating for, someone like you who, has all that wealth of knowledge and looks like everything should check out. And then, like you said, you maybe get that one extraordinary animal.
Yeah.
So,
Well, and then you think you can reproduce that all the time. The reality is you can't. And in fact, one form of breeding is you take the longest bull in the breed and the longest cow in the breed, and you think it's going to be an automatic success, like Cowboy Tough Checks and M. Arrow Cha-Ching. They've bred several animals, but none of them have superseded what they've done. They produced Heartbreaker, Happy Nine, RJF, Lock and Load. They're all great animals, and they may outproduce them in the future with the right heifers. But none of them are going to supersede MR Cha-Ching or Cowboy Tough. They don't. They didn't. They don't have the lateral horn growth that those animals do. Mm-hmm. So you would think you could get it, but you can't. It's everything has to come together just right for you to get that that lateral horn growth.
Well, another thing that you mention on your website is you talk a little bit about stacking pedigrees can help you breed for better tip to tip as well. Do you feel like you can consistently create tip to tip by stacking pedigrees, or tell me a little bit more about that?
Well, you can increase your chances, but you can't, again, you can never get 100%. When I started in 2014 and 15, if you had 5 or 6 over 80 and 1 or 2 over 90 inches in the pedigree, that was really something. And now I've got a heifer that has 13 over 90 and 46 over 80 in her pedigree. So the chances that she will have some productive offspring are very high. And if you look at the nature of the business, the industry has been adding an inch to an inch and a half every year. So other people are stacking pedigrees too, and they're having success. 16, 76 inch animals are just, we're getting that in the second and third year, and no telling what they will be. There's over 800 90-inch animals in the industry now. And when I started, there were probably 20 or 25. So the industry is figuring it out, not just me.
Well, are there other breeding strategies for horn that you can share with us?
Yeah, I mean, there are besides stacking pedigrees. I mentioned one before. You breed the longest horn bull to the longest horn cow. That's called single trait maximum breeding. That works. A lot of people will line breed, which means you take two related animals, breed them together, and again, you're trying like Jamaicism. A lot of people will line breed Jamaicism, and you can do that for 2 or 3 generations. You get the good lateral horn growth, but then you get something called inbreeding depression, and you start losing the growth. You start getting more congenital deformities. You start getting less milk production, and so then that's when you have to outcross. So a lot of people combine line breeding and outcrossing. Probably the best type of breeding is when you go to the websites. You identify strategic combinations that work together, and that's what I've done with Hubble's 20 gauge and the Shiza whippoorwill line. You do that, and then I think that's the best form of breeding that there is. Another form that you can do is you can change horn direction. If you look at, there's a lot of animals that have the vertical horns. Their tip to tip may be the same as someone that has just straight lateral horn, but they may have 10 or 12 more total horn inches but it's just vertical in nature. And there are some bulls that can flatten that out. And there's JP Rio Grande. He's underrated. He doesn't get the credit that he deserves. But he has converted a lot of vertical horn to lateral horn, getting more tip to tip. Hubble's 20 gauge for me has done it probably better than anything. Hubble's Roman 7 has done it, but that's another strategy. But I wouldn't go out and buy a bunch of vertical horn cows and breed them to a bull and plan on getting a lot of tip to tip. It's a low percentage strategy. The final strategy is adding base, and that's very successful. Star-based Commander, Escondido Red, Red Dust, even Boomerang. They have big bases, and they will create a lot more tip to tip. It's just you have to. In your mind, you have to decide what is aesthetically proportionate and decide what route you want to take.
Do you think that there's a downside to breeding just for horn?
Oh, I think there is. I've noticed that some of my best heifers with early horn growth, the AI doesn't take as much. It may take them 3 years to get bred. So I think there's a reduction in fertility sometimes with a lot of horn growth. And I think, the fetus and the horn are competing for the protein. And I think if all the protein is going to the horn, all the keratin, the protein can't go to the fetus, and it lowers the conception rate, and it makes I think it reduces the fertility. I can't prove that. That's just an observation that I've had, and that's not good for the breed to substitute horn for fertility. I mean, it's not a good long-term strategy. So at some point, we'll have to get it figured out between what is best for the breed.
And now a word from our sponsors.
Looking for top quality Longhorns and a taste of true Texas spirit? Look no further than Cantera Cattle Company. Our passion for Longhorns shines at Old Gringo Ranch, where tradition meets excellence. Visit us online at CanteraCattleCompany.com and follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok for the latest updates and ranch life fun. Ready to experience it yourself? Schedule your visit by emailing CanteraCattle@gmail.com. Remember, God is great, Longhorns are good, and life is crazy.
Are you a new Longhorn breeder eager to educate yourself on market trends and sale prices? Stay in the loop with our text messages. Get the latest updates, events, and insider tips on all things Longhorns delivered straight to your phone.
Stay informed by texting website to 888-700-8131, then reply with Longhorns. That's website to 888-700-8131. Sign up today and take your breeding program to the next level.
Hey, if you love From the Pasture with Hired Hand, why not go check out my podcast, The Big Iron Podcast with Andrew Shigori, where we dive into the world of registered Texas Longhorns and what it means to be an agriculture entrepreneur in the modern world, with a little southern flair, of course. Find The Big Iron Podcast wherever you get your podcasts.
So another item that you mentioned on your website, I'm going to read it here and then we can kind of break it down, hopefully. It says, we have discovered certain pedigree combinations which are synergistic. When we discover them, the cow goes immediately into our OPU IVF program to enhance our future results. Can you talk to me about a few of those combinations that have worked for you and just kind of how that process goes in your herd?
Yeah, I stated some of it before. The She's a Whippoorwill line with Hubble's 20 gauge has been very successful. So that works. Putting Cowboy Tough checks with Jamaichism daughters, especially drag iron daughters, that's been very successful. Double breeding Cowboy Tough checks to the WSS Sunrise Rising Star line has produced some outstanding animals. So those are three combinations just off the top of my head that have really accelerated the horn growth in my herd.
So just out of curiosity, when you talk about breeding Cowboy Tough checks with Jamaichism, do the fast horn growth and the slow horn growth even each other out? And is it just typical, or do you still have to be pretty patient with those crossings?
No, I think, well, no, you don't have to be patient. It's amazing how, I mean, when it works, it works, and when it doesn't, it doesn't. But some of them are quite amazing. I mean, I have one that's in her mid 80s, and she's 3 years old. Now, the real question is fertility. She's supposed to have a calf next month, so we'll see if all that horn growth, if all the proteins go into the horn, and we'll see how the baby turns out next month. So I do think that there is a correlation between lots of horn and decreased fertility. So we'll just see what happens next month. I'll be very excited, but it's yeah, you don't have to wait. When it works, you get very accelerated early horn growth that just continues. So we shall see.
Well, this next part, I'm not going to read the whole thing, but there's a section on your breeding philosophy page that I think everyone should go and read through. And in it, you talk about how you have two levels of Longhorns. You have your elite class and your promising class. So I'd like to break that down a little bit. Can you just tell me what each of those are and kind of what that means for those cows in your herd?
Sure. The elite cows are the ones that everybody wants. They're typically $30,000 to $700,000, and typically you'll go to a sale, and maybe the consultants have clients that sold their business, need a tax deduction, or they're just they're very successful people, and they're competitive, and they want to get the best animal in the sale. So it gets bid up. But typically, an elite animal I would describe as coming from a very reputable breeder. It has a long, consistent pedigree. It's typically 95 to 110 inches long, and everybody wants it, and that's why that's why they're so valuable. Now, having said that, unless you have a very detailed plan on how to do the IVF or AIing or embryo transfers and have all your recips lined up and synchronized and all that, it's difficult to get a return on your investment in 3 to 4 years unless you have a detailed plan and you successfully implement it. So everything has to go right to get a return on your investment. But you do get the prestige of having, a very valuable animal. As far as promising, they are, I would say, $5,000 to $15,000 animals. They're extremely valuable, but I classify those. I've already picked out a bull that will go with that pedigree. And I have a few elite animals, but I have a lot more promising animals where I have studied the pedigrees. I know that this goes with this. And, 20% of the time, it'll all work out. So sometimes they're valuable animals, but they'll slip under the radar. And I notice this in every sale, and you probably do too. There's always a lag period. There's kind of a hot time for the sale when there's very elite animals that are being sold, and then there's another time where everybody's had lunch, or towards the end of the sale, they're ready to load out, and they're not sticking around when some of the best animals are really towards the end of the sale. So those are the promising animals. Great pedigrees, great conformation, great horn direction, and great potential.
I'm assuming the goal is to get your promising class animals to be elite class animals within
There you go. That would be the goal. That would be the goal, and you would be surprised when you get the right combination. It's very exciting, and that's what I like about the business. I guess it's sort of like going to Las Vegas and hitting the jackpot, but it's more. I don't go to Las Vegas. Being in the Longhorn business is enough of a gamble for me, but I enjoy it.
Well, I'd like to switch gears and talk a little bit about bulls and just kind of your herd overall. Before we do that, is there anything else you'd like to add about the females, or anything I haven't asked you regarding your breeding strategies surrounding your females?
No, I've pretty much identified what combinations have worked for me. Again, I still go to websites. I see what combinations work together, and it's constantly changing. I mean, the industry is moving very rapidly, and a lot of it is because it's more data driven. We have more data to work with than ever before, and that's what's driving the industry forward. So it will continue to progress and continue to be exciting.
How important do you think it is as an individual breeder to kind of track some of that data for yourself and for the future of your program?
Oh, I think it's critical. I think it's critical. Again, it's 20% heritability for horn. I do think, and I'll talk about this later on. I do think that at some point, other areas are going to have to be data driven besides horn. It's gotten too easy just to measure it tip to tip. We need more weaning weights. We need more, hip heights. We need more EPDs on meat quality, on milk production. We need other ways to determine the value of an animal besides just tip to tip, because the industry is growing at an inch a year, and 20 years from now, the 110-inch animals are going to be 130-inch animals, and then you're going to have a disproportion. Unless you have a lot of muscle mass, it's going to be difficult for the animals to hold up their head, and it's not good for the industry, I think. We all say we breed for the total package, but we breed for horn. And we really do need to start breeding for the total package in order to improve the quality of these animals over time.
Well, when I reached out to you to see if you'd be interested in being our guest on a podcast, it was actually because a few breeders had said that you are just outstanding at breeding and selling bulls, and so they wanted you to talk about that. So let's just start a little bit with that. What I know when I reached out to you said, is that all?
Well, I will say this: I go to great lengths not to have bulls. I have, like I said, I have 100 females, and I AI or do embryo transfers on 30 of them, and that leaves 70 that I pasture breed. So I have about 35 bulls to evaluate every year. But I don't like having a lot of bulls around because they fight, they go through fences, they're just ornery. So I am very aggressive at culling my bulls. So if I have typically 35 to 40 bulls to evaluate every year. Most of them, I would say 80% of them, I cull once they are weaned, because I have a very strict protocol as to what I want to keep and evaluate, or what I just don't want to mess with. So I don't have a lot of bulls around. Now, when people say that, they may think that I'm raising a lot of bulls, because whenever I go to a sale, I put my consignments on one page and I put my bulls on the second page, because I want everybody to have name recognition for the bulls that I'm breeding. And so when the progeny come up in the future, they'll say, yes, I know that bull. And so I market the bulls quite a bit, even before they produce the progeny, so people have name recognition and know the quality of what I'm breeding.
How do you evaluate your young bulls?
Well, the first thing I look at is pedigree, and I look at the maternal side. I make sure the dam, grand dam, and great grand dam are high quality animals. I look at the horn direction. The horn, if they're going up, they're gone. They need to be going down and out, because eventually everything goes forward and up. And so when they go down and back, then that offsets that. So I need to have good horn direction. They need to have a good disposition. If they are fence jumpers, or if they're aggressive, then I immediately cull them, because I just won't tolerate that. They have to have good conformation, obviously. They have to be muscular. They have to have a smooth top line and a clean underline. They have to be very muscular. They have to have a square hip. They have to have a lot of depth, a lot of length. So conformation is very important. Those are the physical appearance, pedigree, conformation. Those are critical elements in order for me to keep them. The other thing, which is sometimes underestimated, is color, and I think color is also one of those that has, there's over 8 genes that control color. But if you produce a black and white animal, the market likes that. I have, PCC Cactus Jack. He's a red brone. He produces that, beautiful animals. I have a very rare animal called Blue Moon that is a reverse brindle gorilla that has the wild gene and the dilution gene. And when you mix him with Parker Brown or black, or sometimes he will dilute it out to a very beautiful color. So I've got some beautiful calves. So obviously I keep him. And I think, when you determine value, things that are very valuable are somewhat rare. And now that we have over 800 90-inch animals in the industry, a 90-inch animal is not rare anymore. So you have to look for other things, and colors is one of them. And the more exotic the color, the more valuable the animal is. Like, for example, if I have a solid white or a solid red with a lot of horn, I cull them, because a lot of animals have a lot of horn, and if you get a lot of white in your herd, it's very difficult to sell. And same thing for solid red. It's better than white, but it's still difficult. So I breed for color, and not just horn, but I like big animal. I like size, and of course the scrotal circumference and the testicles have to be symmetrical. They have to pass a breeding soundness exam before I keep them as a herd sire prospect.
So are you doing these evaluations at different dates? Like, do they, they pass round 1, then they have to pass round 2, pass round 3, and so forth?
Yeah, exactly. And very few make it to the end. If I have a few if I have 3 or 4 that I think are potential herd sires, then what I try to do is either sell part of them as a partnership, lease them. I try to keep some interest in them, because I have sold young herd prospects in the past that have turned out to be superstars. 90 inches at 4 years with a lot of color, and I sold them. I sold one in 2020 called Magnificent Eight because he had 8 over 90, and Donald Trump was running for president. So I thought Magnificent Eight, that would be a great name. So I sold him, and he turned out to be pretty spectacular. So I like to keep part interest, or I like to keep the semen, collect the semen before I sell them. So I have a little insurance policy in my semen tank, or I still retain partial ownership.
Well, that I feel like is a good segue into my next question. So what data do you use to classify a bull as profitable?
Well, physical appearance, consistency of pedigree, particularly, as I mentioned before, the dam, the grand dam, and the great grand dam. But the ultimate value of the bull is the quality of the females that he produces. Unfortunately, it takes a while to determine the quality of those animals. So you have to make that decision early on. I do that I try to keep a portion of the bull as an insurance policy. So if they turn out to be superstars, I still own a portion. That's sort of my business model that I have.
Some breeders state that they won't sell a bull to another breeder that they wouldn't use themselves. How do you feel about that?
Well, I think that's a good principle. If there's something that you know is wrong with the bull, like if they're a fence jumper or they're aggressive, I would never sell them. However, I would sell a bull. Say he doesn't quite fit into my program. Say I have his full brother that is his genetics are fully ingrained into my program. I might sell him to somebody else that fits into their program. And oftentimes I'll look at the females that they have. I'll see what combination would go with my bull, and then I'll sell the bull or advise them, no, don't buy this bull. This might be a better bull. The most important thing, it's a small industry, so you want a happy customer. So yeah, I would sell a bull that I wouldn't use, but it's just because it doesn't fit my program at the time. Like, for example, this Magnificent Eight, I'm probably going to buy back Magnificent Eight, because I sold all of him. But he's got the color, the horn, the pedigree that now fits my herd better than it did a couple of years ago.
And now let's hear from our advertisers.
From the Pasture by Hired Hand is presented by R3 Hilltop Ranch. Located in Chilton, Texas, R3 Hilltop Ranch has been breeding registered Texas Longhorns since 2006. What began as 3 heifers has grown into our current herd, which you can explore on our website at r3hilltop.com. We're passionate about loud colors, longhorns, and docile temperaments, but it's the easy-keeping, low-maintenance traits of Texas Longhorns that initially attracted us and continue to drive our herd growth. In addition to livestock, we proudly offer certified Longhorn beef products. Visit r3hilltop.com/beef to learn more. Thank you for listening and enjoy exploring our ranch online at r3hilltop.com.
Do you sometimes feel like you're the only one who doesn't have it all figured out? Rural life can be isolating, but it doesn't have to be.
Welcome to Ag's Most Okayest Farm Girls, the podcast for women who are craving connection, laughter, solidarity, camaraderie, and just overall encouragement in your everyday life and dreams.
Each week, your hosts, Annalise, that's me, and Courtney will cover topics such as farm life, mom life, making money online, side hustles, hobbies, sharing on social media, jobs off the farm, and so much more.
Us rural gals need to stick together, so saddle up for some fun, real and unsolicited advice, and stories from our everyday farm lives.
Grab a drink, we're Ag's Most Okayest Farm Girls, and we're here to help. Listen wherever you find podcasts.
Imagine updating your website and managing your animals at the same time without needing tech experience. With Hired Hand software, it's that easy. Our user-friendly platform is designed specifically for breeders, allowing you to keep your site fresh and your animal records up to date in just a few clicks.
Let us simplify your digital chores while you focus on what you do best. Visit hiredhandsoftware.com and see just how easy it can be. Well, looking through some of the animal pages on your website, let's talk through some of them. So it looks like you have maybe 4 or so bulls listed as junior herd sires and another 5 listed as prospects. What's the difference there? Like, how is that quantified between those two?
Well, The junior herd sires, they are they're older, and they've passed all the. I've checked all the boxes on them. They have the pedigree, they have the color, and they fill an unmet need. Like, for example, I've got Blue Moon in there. Blue Moon is putting color like crazy into my herd, and I enjoy that. I'm in partnership with Great Iron, with Wayne Manning and some others, and he's a drag iron descendant that I can put with all my Cowboy Tough stuff. And again, that's one of those synergistic combinations that I've talked about. He's also a very large frame bull, and some of my cows are medium frame, so I can increase their size. And he has a horn set where it's going down and back, and that'll offset some of my higher horn stuff. So again, he fills an unmet need. I purchased a partnership in Marlboro Man. Marlboro Man comes from Mike Davis's herd, the Danica genetics. And again, it's got the dam, grand dam, and great grand dam in Danica's image, Danica, and Touchdown Tari. They're all 95 to 115 inches. So, and that's also a relative outcross for me. Again, line breed and then outcross. And then on the top side, it's got KDK Wildfire, which is a Casanova descendant. So it's a relative outcross, not a complete outcross. But that will add a lot of potential to my herd. So I'm excited about that. The last one that is not a prospect, but he's a junior herd sire, and that's a bull called Sheridan. And he's a Hanging Tough times Tsunami's Tough Pearl bull. And he was the fastest growing bull that I've ever had. He was growing so fast. We had a 2-week spell where it never got above freezing. So he froze his right horn. So his left horn is like 47.5 inches at 3 years on his third birthday. So he would have been a 95-inch bull. I'm going to use him on part of my herd also. Now, as far as the prospects, they're just younger. They haven't checked all the boxes. They have the pedigrees. They might have the color. They just have potential. In other words, they haven't done it yet. So we'll just see. We'll see what happens to them.
So are your prospects for sale, or have you learned your lesson with the magnificent bull and you're not willing to part with them quite yet?
Everything is for sale, with a little asterisk by it. I would like to see them develop a little bit more, because again, if I sell them, it's my reputation that's out there, and I don't want to see the horns go up in 2 years. And I kind of want to make sure that what I sell them, I would be proud of to just see them on down the road. So, I mean, everything is for sale, but I would just like to see them mature a little bit before I make a deal, if you will.
Well, on some other of your animal pages, you have a combination of 30 AI bulls with 100 plus cows. So talk to me about that logic, and if there's science behind it, and what your thoughts are there.
It doesn't sound very scientific, does it? Well, when you asked me this, I actually went to my semen tank, and I have 617 straws of semen.
Wow.
And a lot of them are from, again, when I sell a bull, I typically have them collected. So I have an insurance policy, and it's really not a bad business plan, because it cost me $40 a month to store that semen, and I also have embryos in there too. That's $500 a year. Over 10 years, that's $5,000. So I think I can sell a bull or a cow for $5,000 somewhere from that semen tank. So I like to support Bull Alley and the Horn Showcase. So I usually buy some straws of semen. And the other thing, those 30 bulls have been, I've been in the industry for 10 years. I'll buy semen from 2 or 3 bulls a year for a while. Now I have plenty of semen, but it's also an insurance policy that I have. I mean, I still have Jamaicism semen, JP Rio Grande semen, Cowboy Tough semen. So at some point, I'll probably have a big sale, maybe on hired hand.
I have
It's part of a business model.
I have a feeling you're that guy that gets the phone call from the same people every few months. You ready to sell this yet? You ready to sell that yet?
That's right. That's right. That's what keeps the phone ringing.
Well, let's switch gears a little bit here. How long did you research bulls and bloodlines?
Oh gosh, when I started off, it took me a long time, and part of it was because the data just wasn't there. You would be surprised how much more sophisticated the new buyers are now. They have a lot more data at access. But I used to go to the hired hand websites, and there wouldn't be measurements, there wouldn't be photos, or the pedigrees weren't lengthy pedigrees. They wouldn't have pictures of the sire or dam, let alone the grand dam or the great grand dam. So it was a struggle. Now the data is much more accessible. You can go through it a lot faster, but still, you need it. It's not just enough to get it on a website. You have to call if you're going to buy something. You have to call the seller, talk to him about disposition. If there are any flaws. The website is just an introduction, if you will. And then and then you make a few phone calls, and then before I buy something, I like to go see the animal in person, and then go from there. But it used to take me a long time to go through the websites and look at the animals. Now it just takes a few minutes.
So is your list constantly changing?
Yeah, I mean the animals are getting better. I mean there's just no question. So yeah, it's constantly changing. It's getting more difficult to keep up, but it also occupies my time and gives me something to do. It's something that I enjoy. But yeah, it's very exciting. All the new bulls that are on the scene and all the options that you have. It just takes a while to see what works and what doesn't work. But yeah, it's constantly changing because the industry is moving very quickly, and it's difficult to keep up anymore.
Are there any bulls, whether they be yours or others in the industry, that you haven't mentioned yet that you are excited about?
Well, I'm excited about some of Mike Davis's production with Danica. I like the Colluder Bull. I like Wayne Manning's Django. I like the Shagoda's Just a Cowboy. Of course, I'm very excited about my own bull, PCC Cactus Jack, that I'm in partnership with Scott Pace, Wayne Manning, and Bob Loomis, and others. So yeah, there's a lot of exciting bulls out there, and it's not just the horn; it's size, it's conformation, it's color, it's consistency of production. There's multiple parameters that we need to start going by besides just tip to tip horn.
One last question here on my list before we see if there's anything else we want to go over, and that is one we received from a listener, and he wanted us to ask you, how do you move tough to move bulls?
Oh, okay. Well, there's several ways. Number one, Hired Hand Live has a monthly sale that you can put bulls in, and you can do an e-blast, and you can put that bull in the sale, and that's every month. And so I think they have to be priced correctly, but I think that's a very good way to sell them. You can. Of course, put them on Facebook. Facebook draws a lot of attention, especially if they're flashy and they're producing some flashy offspring. That brings a lot of attention. I've taken bulls to futurities with the intention of not winning the futurity, but getting the bull sold. So that's another way to draw attention to the bull and have somebody else go home with him rather than you. So you can do that. Of course, you can sell them as a roper. You can put them in a beef program. You can lease them for a year and see how they turn out. You can sell a partnership, or you can even I've even leased a bull out for free. You take care of him for a year, and that's see if he progresses or see if he regresses. So there's a lot of options, but you have to price them correctly, and you have to, just be flexible in those options. Because I really don't like to take them to the sale barn and sell them. I would rather have them produce and turn out well. But you have to realize it's not a very high percentage thing. And of course, the other thing you can do is put them in a steer and put them in your front pasture, or you can make them into a Gomer bull. If you have a synchronization program, and they're sterilized, then you can use them for heat detection and artificial insemination. So that's another function where they would be useful and not on somebody's dinner plate.
Well, what haven't I asked you about that we could still cover that our listeners would benefit from here?
Gosh, just kind of advice to new breeders. I would, sometimes cheap is expensive. If you buy things that are too cheap, they're going to be expensive in the long run when it comes to selling them. So I would emphasize buying quality over quantity. I would buy females with good, consistent pedigrees. I would buy bulls with very strong maternal lines and bulls that are synergistic with the cows that you're buying. The most important thing is to have a plan and to execute the plan. And if you do that, then it'll be more intellectually satisfying and more financially satisfying. But you must have a plan and you must execute it. That would be my advice.
Well, and just to backtrack here 1 second, I was making sure my memory was not too rusty when you were talking, so I apologize if you heard me typing, but you did mention PCC Cactus Jack, and I just wanted to congratulate you because you didn't mention he was Ultimate Bull at the Horn Showcase, so we have to get that plug in there as well, so that's awesome.
Yes. Yeah, 2 years in a row. And also at Justin's Legend sale. So yeah, he's been a very good performer, and I'm very pleased with how Cactus Jack is doing. And I've got very good partners with Scott Pace, Wayne Manning, Bob Loomis. So it's a nice group to be associated with.
That's great. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to join me today. I know that everyone who listens will find this highly beneficial. So we greatly appreciate your time.
Well, I appreciate the opportunity. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay, you're welcome.